Hi everybody, it's Franny and we're back with our 3.2 Carrera project. Where we left off last time was we got the engine running really well, but we needed to do a shakedown run. So that's what this episode's going to be about, and I'm afraid we found a few issues. So at any rate, let's get to that shakedown run. And we're off. All right, well, it's a beautiful day out. I thought we'd take the car out for a little tootle and proper shakedown run for once. Now that the engine sounds like it's doing its thing back there, probably take a little bit of a longer run, get it good and warm, and see how we do. Oh, a little pop back there. Did you hear that? That was weird. Makes me wonder if we still have some kind of injector issue back there. Transmission sure feels nice. No more rattling. It used to rattle a little bit, especially right about here. 3,000 RPM in second gear, and the gear shift would sort of rattle back and forth, and I don't feel that at all. It feels really tight actually, which is great. I do have both fire extinguishers just in case. Well, that's not going to be an issue. It's kind of cold out today. It's probably less than 50 degrees, probably about 45 or so. So kind of cold. It's going to take a while for the engine to warm up, I think. Okay. Little pop back there, that's weird. Alright, I'm going to pull over here. We'll just take a look at everything, make sure everybody is very happy. All right, well that was a little strange. I must have knocked a plug wire off, and that may have been what we were hearing for popping back there. Oh my gosh, zillion things. Yes, the 1, 2, 3, number 4 had the plug wire off. The idle still feels a little weird. All right, well, we'll head home. Yeah, that's not happy. It's pulling really well. That's good. Seems fine at speed. I'm wondering what that surging is all about. Well, as you can imagine, I was pretty frustrated when I got back from that run. So take a look at this. This is from the Bentley manual, and they break out several problems that you might be having, but let's take a look at column B here, erratic idle, and go down and see what our possible causes are and the corrective actions. Alright, starting with the first one, ground plug connections. Now I got a lot of comments on grounds, but we cleaned the ground on the intake manifold, and I know that the one from the tunnel to the transmission is clean as as well. So I really don't think we have any ground issues. Next, the speed sensor. We've replaced the speed sensor, so I'm thinking that's probably good. Next is the airflow sensor. Now I've been through that and tested it, and it may have been a little difficult to tell with that digital meter, but I think our airflow sensor is working just fine. Now what about fuel pressure? We've tested that as well. We tested it with the engine not running, with the engine running, and we also checked the bypass valve, and all of that was within spec. Next is the idle air control valve. So that's that horizontal cylinder there that clicks back and forth when you rotate it, and that's been cleaned, checked, and is also within spec. So I really don't think that's our problem. What about the cylinder head temperature sensor? That's been replaced as well. So I don't think we've got a problem with that, and it's the new 2-pin version. How about the fuel injectors? Well, we did have a problem with them initially, but we sent them back off. We got them re-cleaned and they were checked out, and I believe them to be working just fine. Next on the list, CO level and idle speed adjustment incorrect. Well, look at that. So check for vacuum leaks. I have checked for vacuum leaks. I hooked my vacuum gauge up and it was reading just fine, exactly what it should. So I really don't think we have any vacuum leaks. Replace the oxygen sensor. Now that is interesting. So here's the thing about the oxygen sensor. I did pull it out when we pulled the engine out, and I cleaned it. I actually cleaned it on the wire wheel on the bench grinder, and that's kind of a no-no. Those things are very fragile and they're easily broken. If you bang it or drop it, you can destroy it. So because of that, I went ahead and ordered a new one when I ordered the coil. Also, they only have a certain amount of life in the car, and this was going to need to be replaced in about 20,000 miles anyways. So let's take a look at that oxygen sensor. Well, I've hooked up a set of jumpers here, and I have my meter hooked up to the O2 sensor. It's supposed to be somewhere between 0.1 and 0.9 volts. I want to be able to disconnect it and connect it easily. Once the connector goes together, it's a bear to get it back apart. So I've got a probe sitting in it there, and I'm going to go ahead and start the engine. We'll go ahead and take a look on our meter and see what's going on, and then we'll disconnect and reconnect and see if we get any real difference. So our reading on our O2 sensor is 0.5 volts, 500 millivolts. That's right within the middle of the range. That looks great. See what happens if I disconnect it. All right, that's the O2 sensor disconnected. And hear the surging. We'll get back up again. There we go, with it hooked back up. We disconnect it, and we get our surging. Hook back up. A little intermittent though. Well, the voltage seemed pretty consistent on the O2. Well, as I said, I ordered a brand new oxygen sensor, but I knew that the one that was on the car is going to have to be swapped out in another 20,000 miles. Oh, looks like they've already put some stuff on it. Look at that. They already have some never sleeves on there for me. That's awesome. Anyway, let me go ahead and swap this out. It's not the end of the world. It's actually really easy to do, and we'll give it a try and see if we're any better. Let's go ahead and start the engine and see where we are. And remember, our oxygen sensor is stone cold, so it'll probably take a little bit for it to warm up. Now the oxygen sensor also has a built-in heater as well, and that'll help it to warm up. Takes a couple of minutes or so for the oxygen sensor to come up to temperature. But it sounds like it's idling much better, huh? Settling right in like it should. I think what I want to do is go ahead and take the car out again. I'm not going to bore you with all that. I'll just go ahead and take the car out again, tootle around a little bit, get it good and hot, and see if our surging comes back. The car is good and warm. Take a look at the temp over there. It's good and warm. Now it's idling, but if you look, it's idling a bit high at 1,000 RPM. That's a bit high. So check this out. This is very interesting. I'm just gonna kind of speed it up a little bit. 1,000 RPM. 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 right, and let it back to idle. And there's our surging. All right, up again. All right, now what I'm gonna do is put the car in first gear. I have the brake on. I'm gonna let the clutch out just enough to slow the engine down. And there it goes, it stops surging. Now, isn't that interesting? It's a little higher than I'd like it to be, but it stopped surging. All I did was put a load on the engine, that's all I did. And watch this, okay, now that it's sort of idling again, speed it back up. Just takes a second and boom. A little bit of load on it, bring it back down, and it settles into its 1000 RPM idle. This is all very interesting. I do have a theory though. Pull it into the garage and I want to check something. Well, since our idle will settle down as long as I slow the engine down, my thought is that the base idle might be too high. So the way the system works is there's a base idle that you can set on the airbox over there, and then the computer kind of takes it from there. And I'm guessing that our base is off a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it and see if we can get a little closer to our 800 RPM actual idle. Now, one thing I have to do first is I have to bridge 2 ports over here on the left side on an access port over here to make sure that the system doesn't just compensate for the idle. We don't want it doing that. So, all right, let me go ahead and bridge these 2 pins. The 2 pins to bridge are pins B and C, and they're at 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the connector. The engine is good and warm, and it's idling at, looks like just over 1,000, about 1,100 RPM, which is too high. Let's go ahead and jumper our 2 ports together, and then we'll go ahead and set the base idle. So that one. Yeah. All right, let's see if we can back this down a little bit. That's a whole turn. There we go, we're coming down. That's a turn and a half. Two turns. There we go. 2.5 turns. That's 3 turns in. We're down to 900. 3.5 turns. There we are, we're coming down to 4 turns. We're getting into the 800s. There we go. That's where we need to be, somewhere around 800 RPM there. That was about 4.5 turns. All right, let's remove our jumper. There we go. Idle right at 800. That's where it should be. All right, let's go ahead and flip the throttle a little bit. $81, $79. It's bouncing around a little bit, but it's really close. Yep, it looks good. And on the dash, it looks really good as well. It's sitting right at 800, where it should be for this car. Well, that's a very interesting issue, isn't it? That's very strange. Somebody had adjusted that thing quite a bit, and I think when we got the fuel injectors cleaned, it messed it up completely. Very interesting. Let me go ahead and turn the car off. I'll be right back. Well, that is strange. I didn't expect that. I think the car had always idled a little high, maybe somewhere around at least 900 or more. That's not good either. It should be at 800 for this year. In 87, this is in 86, in 87 it went up to 880. I've let it sit for a few seconds. Let me go ahead and restart it again. I just want to make sure that it's where it should be. And the idle's right where it should be. That's super interesting. I mean, I've really been chasing my tail on this thing. I've checked so many different things, and holy cow, to find out that it was just really an adjustment. Yeah, the idle's working great. Okay, let me go ahead and turn the car off. I wouldn't have expected to have to make a base level adjustment on the car, but I think it might have something to do with the fuel injectors getting cleaned and new spark plug wires and maybe even a new coil. This adjustment should have a little yellow cap over the top of it, and it's not there, which that tells me that somebody's mucked with it before. And boy, we had to run that thing in quite a bit. 4.5 turns, that's a lot. It wasn't just off a little bit, it was off a lot. Now, in order to set this adjustment properly, you really should be using a CO meter on the car. I don't have one of those, but I do know a shop that does have one. So I think I'll take it down to the shop and have them adjust it properly now that I know kind of what the actual issue is. But it seems to be idling where it's supposed to now at 800, which is great. And I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and take the car out for a quick tootle, but I think it's going to be just fine. And there we go. Woohoo! Well, all right, well, I'm going to cut the video off here. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. If you got any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below and I'll get right to them. We still have more work to do on this car. If it's running perfectly, that's awesome, but we have the interior to do as well. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that now. Hit the little bell next to it to get notified because we still have this to do. And I keep saying this, we're going to be getting to the Ferrari 308 after this. Well, thank you so much for watching. And as always, a very special thank you to our Patreon supporters. Until next time, safe travels. Bye.